10-minute mark, I'll give you 10,
Okay.
and then 5, so you don't have to worry about time. How long would you say you're?
With the audience here, I thought it would be a little more engaging, maybe 15, 20 minutes tops.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not gonna even bother. You end
Yeah.
when you want. Usually we give 50 minutes, but you know.
Yeah.
And don't worry, I think more people will show up.
Yeah, I know. Eventually, as soon as I start talking, they'll start rolling in.
Okay, cool beans.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man.
Take this off. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that should be perfect. You guys rolling already? Okay, great. All right, well, welcome to Breaking the Officer Enlisted Divide in your chapter. My name is Alex Ortiz. I'll be your presenter today. How you guys liking NatCon so far? First timers? All three? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I was part of last year. Last year was my first time. I had a great time. I've assisted other conferences. I'm an accounting major. So, but being on the veteran side is completely different. I feel like I'm at home. Everybody knows a little bit of what I'm talking about. We share different experiences, so I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Tell you a little bit more about myself. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Puerto Rico, joined the Army from Puerto Rico. I speak both Spanish and English. Back to leadership experiences. I was a non-commissioned officer in the Army for 3.5 years. I was medically retired, and I assisted Grand Canyon University around 2013, 2014. I was the Accounting Society president at that time. My engagement with the SVA wasn't too involved. It was a really big campus, and I was more focused on trying to get a job in accounting than being part of the SVA. Well, fast forward to last year when I had to move back to Rhode Island, and I joined Rhode Island College. My student service advisor said, hey, would you like this opportunity? We need somebody to help us start the SVA. Like, you know what? I'm all for it. I'll try it this time. And last year I attended, was my first conference. I had been in the president's chair, you can say, for maybe 10, 15 days at tops. I had nobody recruited. I had just started the whole process. And this year I was fortunate enough to be nominated as Student Veteran of the Year. It was a great pleasure. If you guys haven't taken advantage of the Leadership Institute, the regional summits, I highly encourage you guys do. Apply for those. They're really insightful. You learn a lot. You make a lot of connections, a lot of networking connections. So it's completely worth it. If you ever thought about joining, don't just do it. You know, you're gonna get a lot out of it. So to start off, so defining the divide. I have 4 main categories, and I'll be talking about my personal experiences in both non-SVA chapter groups and the SVA. So we have separated into groups. We have an invisible boundaries between 2 things, a disagreement and a cause to disagree. So when you separate into groups, what I'm specifically talking about is like nursing students, finance majors, education majors, business majors. These are all majors that have, let me go back, sorry. These are all majors that are really drastic and it's hard to relate already. When you join, when you go for your major, you're trying to get employed. That's the end goal, be all. You're going back to school because you want to be employed. So there's no reason why they could join their specific group and the SVA, because we need to sell it as, you know, we have the camaraderie, we have all the support that you need from veterans on this side. So boundary between 2 things is more symbolical. is, for example, the difference of sex or gender is a divide, correct? So if you're gonna walk into, for example, a bathroom, there's a symbol that says who should enter. Anybody can enter, but who should actually be in here. So that's another identifier. Disagreements. So what type of disagreements do we usually have? Should we try to take all the members to NatCon or only the officers? And is the president or the VP, what I say goes? I've had that experience so many times at different clubs and organizations that sometimes it's troublesome, you know? So not because you have the reins of the club, you should be able to do exactly what you want. You have to make it part of a unity, part of the community. So for the last one, I have the causes to disagree, which usually entails facts, definition, values, signaling, failure to logic, competition, default beliefs, and self-interest. So for example, for facts, people that have access to different type of information. For example, one student is studying nursing, the other pre-law. They're gonna have two different points of views completely on what something is defined. So you got somebody that watches CNN and somebody that watches Fox News. They're gonna have completely different views on the same storming the Capitol, just to give you an example, not to get too political. But storming the Capitol, CNN and Fox News are probably going to report two different things. It's the same news, but you're watching it from two different points of views. You have values. So people can value different things without either of them being wrong. That is something extremely important because when I joined the military, I came from Puerto Rico as a completely different cultural experience than somebody that was born in Tennessee or somebody from California. I might relate to some things from somebody that was from Hawaii because they're an islander too. So you have all these different things coming together, and when you put that in a club, it's hard for everybody to understand where every person's coming from. Signaling is you could almost attach it to saying, for example, I live in the Boston area, but I was born in New York. I'm a Yankees fan. So if I go to Boston with a Yankees hat, if you know sports, that's a game over. And I know if Jared heard me right now, he'd probably be screaming. But it's something it's sad that we have to get to those extremes, that you have to try to put a different hat on to blend in, and you can't be yourself. So when I'm talking about signaling, that's kind of what I'm saying. Failures to logic is kind of self-explanatory, but somebody says something that's not factual, so that you know concretely what that person is saying is not factual. It doesn't have any logic to it. It's like 2 + 2 is not 5, it's 4. And then that creates another divide when you're trying to deliver a message. So for competition, I have sometimes the disagreement is extremely simple. I want to be the president of the chapter. I want to be the treasurer. For example, I want to be the treasurer because I'm an accounting student. So I feel like that position should be mine. And you don't know how to run Excel. You don't know how to do this. You don't know how to read these charts. I need to take over that position. What am I willing to do to compete for that? So that could create a friction and a divide in the club, and it could start rumors, and it could start different types of, not necessarily attacks, but ways to get that person out of that position so you can join in. And believe it or not, those competitions do exist within clubs. I haven't experienced it at the SVA, but it's something I experience in other clubs. They get extremely competitive when they're trying to put it on the resume and trying to build their resume up without having a job. So default beliefs, for example, we are raised with a specific set of knowledge, most of the time passed down through friends and family. The belief is usually dismissed when we spend some of the time in the military, as we are able to associate different walks of life. So I was brought up in a Seventh-day Adventist Christian worldview. And for me, once I joined the military, it was extremely shocking to see that other people had. It sounds naive, and this is where we start seeing where all these divides come in. I would judge people based on my default beliefs. And I felt that it was wrong, but I didn't know why it was wrong, because that's all that I knew. You know, you got this hindsight, you're walking on a straight line, and everything, the world that's happening around you, you're not really sure, because all you're focusing is on, you know, the default beliefs. Self-interest, it's another one. Let's say me as a president of the chapter, I want to go to the Ronald McDonald House and clean it for them, you know, and I want to take the club there because the Ronald McDonald House means a lot to me. And other club members bring other suggestions, like let's clean a cemetery, let's go deliver coats in the winter. And I'm like, no, we're not gonna do none of that. I'll completely dismiss it. You know, what I say goes, let's just go do this to the Ronald McDonald House. So if you're in that situation, you're possibly gonna be in a divide and not want to attend the club anymore, because I literally just pushed you out and dismissed whatever whatever you wanted to do. All right, so in group separations, how do we fix these problems? So consider holding activities for these different groups. Nursing students, for example. One of the big tools that I've used in the past is having industry tours. So for example, if you have nursing students within your college or your university, and you could take the accounting students and the business students and coordinate with the VA hospital and see how the daily operations works for the VA hospital. You're adding value to all three of those groups, and you're also adding value to yourself, showing them how the SVA chapter can actually help them better themselves. Industry tours are really, really, I think, crucial and important, and every club should conduct one at least once a year. It gives you insight to work, it helps you network, connections. I know a lot of nursing students in Rhode Island College want to work at the local VA hospital. They see a sense of duty, they want to partake in helping veterans. So you could tag along. You could also invite other clubs to create networking opportunities. So you could also have professors, senior students, that you could have a discussion panel just like this. Just put a tablecloth with your SVA chapter's logo on it, and just have a straight one-on-one conversation. Let these students ask these questions so they have all the information they need, and they don't feel like they're not part of the group. We have to remember too, that we have a special advantage, not like, for example, an accounting association where mostly just accounting and business majors. Like, if somebody's in a nursing program, they're really not gonna get a lot from the accounting association unless they're interested in it. So we have to implement and understand where everybody's coming from to be a part of this. And we covered the discussion panels too, that we could do those. So a boundary between two things: always be mindful of your chapter members, potential members, and their needs. So it's good to have input of the members on what activities you would like to do. We kind of brushed this a little bit. There's usually someone charismatic within the club that's always making jokes or making everybody laugh. You can use that person as an asset, put them as a liaison for student engagement. So every time you have student engagement on campus, that person could be the forefront and represent the club. Doesn't always necessarily have to be the president, the vice president, or an officer. You want to give opportunity to the members too to be able to conduct these different types of networking events, give them the opportunity, because eventually when you graduate, these students need to come up, and if you are not constantly bringing them with you and showing them everything that you're doing, then there's a problem. Because once you leave, they're on there trying to figure it out. And believe it or not, it happens a lot. So if you're not in a leadership position and you are a member, you should definitely take into consideration this and bring it up in your next meeting to see if the officers are willing to be a little bit more engaging and bring you into all these other conversations too. Obviously, it's going to vary by bylaws and how you run your chapter, but it would be ideal for them to be able to participate. So how do we fix disagreements? Should we try to get all the members to NatCon or only the officers? Like I just mentioned, what do you guys think? Do you think a member should come to NatCon or should only be the officers? Let me give you an example. My school, Rhode Island College, would not let us come over because of COVID. I completely understand that. That's coming from a state mandate. It's a state school. I understand that. However, there was a value that my members wouldn't have gotten if they didn't come to NatCon. They wouldn't have experienced this. I graduate, so I felt like my passion and drive to ensure that they came to NatCon was more powerful than them not being able to assist, and I couldn't let it down that they needed to come to NatCon. So I advocated for them, and I told them, hey, you guys, do you really want to go? Because what I'm about to do is push the limits and the boundaries of what's available to us. They said, yeah, we really want to go. So I had already raised the funding myself, and all they needed to do was show up. But once we buy all the plane tickets, they told us no. I reached out to Dr. Kinch, and I asked her, hey, can you write us a letter to participate? Because I actually have officers and members that I want them to come in. Most of my officers are all seniors, and they're leaving the campus coming the spring. So I have members that they can experience NatCon and be able to take these experiences and build on it, and they have that motivation for next year when we're not there. And if we're participating as an alumni, they can take advantage, and they say, hey, you know what? I did go to NatCon, and I did like it. I did enjoy it. I brought something with me. So my personal belief is that it shouldn't only be officers having the opportunity to come to NatCon. You should definitely at least have one member. Granted, if the funding is there, you should definitely do it, but should always push to bring at least one member, regular member, no official charges, especially somebody that's kind of doubtful if they want to join or not. It's a risk, it's an investment, but I think it should be taken so you have a continuity to continue being able to share the knowledge of what NatCon is. So I'm the president, and what I say goes. It's a very touchy subject because the bylaws do say that the president can override something. We have to understand that being a student chapter, we usually take communication and guidance, being in the military, from different aspects and point of views. When I was in Afghanistan, I would take advisement from some of my junior enlisted soldiers that had mechanical experience in generators, for example. Me being a wheel vehicle mechanic, I would go to them for counsel and ask them, hey, what do you guys think we should do? How should we approach this? How should we fix this? And then take all that knowledge, get them in and agree with them. Okay, I believe this is the best course of action based on what you said. So let's try that. Not by empowering them, you break that divide. But if you're always telling them what to do, telling them, hey, this is what we do, this is what I want to do, I'm doing all the work, let's figure it out. So if they still don't want to do it, then of course, then you go ahead and tell them, hey, let's just do this, and you try to get them to motivate. That's another different subject, but it goes in the lines of you need to bring those walls down, and you're not there as a dictator, but more as a leader to show them and empower them. So how do we fight the facts? So when both parties have factual statements, you have to work with both views. So if somebody sees a blue or a green, I see a blue or green, but a colorblind person might see it a different color. And if you're trying to identify that, they have that disability that doesn't let them see what we see, but they're not wrong, because to them, what looks gray to us could be blue to them. So we have to work around that and try to identify, especially as leaders, when we're trying to understand the junior enlisted, or you're trying to understand the enlisted, the members of the chapter. You want to make sure that they know they're heard, and you're going to take their facts and their beliefs and bring them in to take a decision as a whole. For definitions, most definitions are concrete. So if I tell you that this tablecloth is black and everybody sees it and it's black, we can argue that it might not be black. It might be another shade of black, but that's a completely different argument. The basic of the definition is that it's just black. We can't oversee that or overlook it. We shouldn't be looking to other ways to prove that it's not black. Same when you're trying to recommend something in your chapter, you shouldn't be, if we're trying to say, let's fundraise $500 selling cakes, then sure, you can offer other different positions, but let's focus on the cakes, because we don't know exactly. That's probably a proven path to easy fundraising, to give you an example. So for values, like we talked before, we need to, some members are going to have ethical and moral differences. So, and this is, in the veteran community, it's a hard pill to swallow. Sometimes we have to understand that our worldview or our Christian worldview doesn't always align with other people. We need to accept that and then work with that. How do I accept somebody that's a Seventh-day Adventist and he can't go to our meetings on Saturdays or our outings? They don't drink alcohol, they don't eat pork. Muslims too. So how do you bring that into that? That's a divide right there, because if I'm a Seventh-day Adventist student, veteran, and I'm going to the SVA and the first outing is let's go drinking, then they're like, do you guys do anything else? Do you have a barrier right there, and how do you address that barrier? Well, we don't have anything else, but you need to probe and understand where they're coming from. And once they tell you, hey, well, I'm a Christian and I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, or I'm a Muslim, I don't participate in these things, then you're like, well, we can build something for you. We could build something to include you in our circle, include you in our chapter, so you can be a part of it. So you want them to feel like they're welcome. So for signaling, you don't feel or make your members feel like they don't belong simply because they are, like they say in the Army. Any of you guys in the Army? No? Marines? Navy? Navy? All right. So in the Army, they say, oh, you're a leg. If you're not airborne, jumping out of perfectly flying planes, trying to hit the ground at 40, 50 miles an hour, then you're a leg. So you don't have to, I was in the 82nd, but I was a wheel mechanic and I never went airborne for a medical condition, to give you an example. So I shouldn't have to blend in and say all these airborne stories that I just saw. I didn't partake in it. I don't feel like I identify, because you're excluding me. You're always talking about how you never went airborne. You don't want to exclude them by signaling. So for the failures of logic, the best way to deal with failures of logic is to show and explain the facts and try to make them understand what you're trying to convey. So if I'm trying to tell you, again, going to the mantle, this mantle is black. Well, why is it black? Well, do you want to listen to why it's black? Do you want to have this conversation? If they agree, then you have the conversation. Why do we conduct our chapter meetings this way? Well, let me show you the bylaws. Let me show you and explain to you how this actually works. Well, why can't I be president? Why can't I be the secretary? Why can't we go on a field trip to go see the Capitol? So how do we do all these things? Well, let's check the bylaws, let's check our funding. Here, become involved with the chapter. You're bringing down those divides, those walls. Like the competition, this is a big thing for me as a leader too. When I was an NCO, I wanted to make sure that my guys were always ready. My guys were always ready to go to the promotion board. In the Army, it's extremely easy to get promoted. If you do your physical fitness test and you're there on time in the right uniform, in the right place, you're getting promoted. You know, it's not like the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, where you have to fight tooth and nail, find the cure to COVID, and you know, like you're getting promoted to E5. Here you go, not in the Army. So in the Army it's different, but you want to make sure that because it's so easy to get promoted, that they are good leaders, that they're not going to get to that position and then hinder everybody else from getting to that position. Because obviously as people retire, then you have NCO shortages, and then they have to promote everybody that's probably not prepared to do it. So you should always encourage healthy competition. For example, me, I started last year with the club, and pretty much we didn't actually kick off the club or the organization until the fall semester, when we were back in person and everything was getting kind of a sense of normality. That was extremely hard, and I feel like I wasn't the chapter president all for just 4 months. That's what it feels like. Although it was a whole year, almost 10 months of planning before that. What are we gonna do? When do we open up? What, scheduling different things. But it was just me and my service advisor, because I didn't have anybody. You know, and that felt like, I feel like I should be here another year. The reality is that it's not that I don't want to be here. I want somebody else that's a junior, or somebody that just came in to kind of, let me show you the reins so you have all this experience. You're gonna have 3 years of SVA. You can have 3 years of NatCon. You can have 3 years of experience in fundraising. So having competition should always be healthy. Having 1 year of a leadership experience and then explaining why you didn't continue. So if you go to an employer and you have on your resume, you only were the president for a year, and they're gonna say, well, why is that? And you tell them, well, I wanted to be a leader and teach them how to take over the ropes. So when I left, there was a continuation, like we talked earlier, and there wasn't a break in the chapter. Nobody's scrambling to try to figure things out. So that also looks really good to employers. Shows leadership, it shows that you understand, and it shows that the mission or the work is always gonna constantly, regardless of the turnover, is gonna constantly continue growing. So default beliefs is almost the same as values. We have, sometimes it is hard to accept other people's beliefs, and sometimes their default beliefs is, that's it, that's already engraved there. So I was born within the Seventh-day Adventist religion, and my mom is still a part of it, and it's something that it's really restrictive for me. Like, and I share this because it took a lot from me to have my own worldview, my own Christian worldview, and it hindered my performance in the military. It kind of got me in a lot of trouble because my belief was so strong. And then, fortunately, I was able to get accommodations through my chain of command in order to, it's a little bit hard for me to explain it, but some NCOs didn't want me to kind of have my Christian, beliefs. So at one point I felt like I need to let this go because it's hindering me, and it bothered me for so long, So we shouldn't cap or hinder that. And it's, to some people it might be, well, why is anybody doing that in today's age? Like, why is anybody? It's still out there. Just like racism is still out there, just like unconscious segregation is still out there. Like, we need to, if we see it, we need to like nip it right there, because it's just gonna create constraints. And then once you start creating those constraints and those walls, people are going to start talking bad about the chapter, or at least the leadership within the chapter. So self-interest is, it's a little hard when you're trying to get something done. If nobody wants to do anything, and it comes down to, well, what I want to propose is we're going to go raise money to go feed or bring food to a homeless shelter, and we're going to serve the food for Thanksgiving. If nobody else proposes that, then you're good to go. You know, like, let's do that. But if somebody else brings something up, then you have to make the decision of, do I want to benefit my self-interest because me helping that homeless shelter is going to be some type of benefit to me, maybe an internship or whatever the case may be. You can't put your interest to better yourself over the chapter's interest and the members' interest. So just take everything holistically and see what's the best for the club and what everybody wants to do. All right, so to summarize, care for others and be understanding. We all need a place to belong on campus, and our chapters, our chapters are our shelters. So when I got to Rhode Island College, all they had was a little box and almost a basement, you know? And even my military resource center interim director, she's done such an amazing job. She's an Air Force veteran, did over 35 years, did recruiting. She's an amazing person that really cares for the veterans, you know, and having that support there, we need it sometimes. Sometimes as soon as I swiped the card to go in the Military Resource Center, she got us a new place. She got it painted for us. She did all this work. As soon as I walk in there, I feel like I'm home. I feel like when it's 9 o'clock work call and you were going into the job and you're like, all right, I'm in the office, I'm in my place of duty, like, I feel like I'm home, all your friends come in, and that's how our resource center comes in. So we have to make it feel like that for everybody that walks in through the door, even if they're not a veteran. Like, there's so much value outside our veteran community and other clubs, like the marketing department. If you need somebody to post on Facebook and you're like, well, none of my veterans do, why are you unless you're just focus on veterans, but in our school, we let any student that's part of the student body be a part of our organization. Why? Because they bring value too. They bring marketing experience, they bring accounting experience, they bring, if you got a nurse that took like we call it combat lifesaver course, but we have a couple nurses that did that. But they got CPR and you're doing a ruck march, let's say for a fun event. I don't know how that's fun, but if you're doing a ruck march for a fun event and now you have a nurse that has CPR and it's licensed, and you have somebody on your team that's not a veteran, but they're willing to help and be a part of that team. So you want to include all these people and make them feel welcome regardless. We already have a stigma that either we're crazy, we have PTSD, we probably shouldn't, we're too old to be in the classroom, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Like, all those have been barriers that we've slowly been knocking them down as the years have passed for post 9/11 veterans. So we need to make them feel like they're welcome. Anybody got any questions? No? Well, it's been my pleasure. I'm Alex Ortiz, and you guys can grab my contact information if you want, and we can network and talk down the road. Thank you.